Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Armstrong, and I'm the third generation of the Armstrong family to own and operate the Buccaneer. Welcome to our History and Nature tour. I lead this tour every week, and we will talk about the over 400 different plant species that we have on the property, over 78 different bird species on the Buccaneer alone. We'll also talk about our history, and we'll talk about our early days since we opened the resort. My grandparents opened the doors back in 1947. On our tour, we'll talk about St. Croix's rich history and culture. We have over 4,000 years of history on the island of St. Croix. On my tour, you'll learn why the island is called the Island Under 7 Flags and why we have over 200 different sugar mills dotting our hillsides. So join me at the Buccaneer for our History and Nature tour. So on our tour, we'll talk about the over 400 different plant species. This is a cashew tree. It was originally brought here thousands of years ago when Indians came out of South America and settled in the islands of the Caribbean. We call it locally the inside-outside fruit, and that's because the cashew apple grows on the outside of the cashew nut. Now this is the very same tree that maybe you've enjoyed cashews honey roasted or dried smoked. Here in the islands, people will make cashew jelly from the cashew fruit. And then the cashews themselves, what you may not know is that this is the casing of the nut. When it opens up like a clamshell, the nut will be on the inside. It actually has a caustic residue that surrounds it, and it can even kill you if you ingest it. But all you have to do is to rinse that off, and then you can safely roast it, and you can enjoy the cashews raw. But you don't have to worry about touching the outside because it's the casing that opens up that gives you that nut on the inside. For a period of about 100 years, the expression was that sugar was king, and that's because of this plant, sugarcane. So sugarcane was grown from east to west across the entire island of St. Croix. The tall, woody grass would then be harvested and fed through the gears over at our sugar mill. It would be crushed, and the sugary juice would be sluiced out of the mill into these huge copper pots called the sugar pot, where they would be boiled over an open flame. Granular sugar would grow around the rim of the pot, and then that granular sugar would be shipped back to Copenhagen for the final crystallization process. The slurry remaining at the bottom would be molasses, and that would be turned into rum. And we're still making rum today on the island of St. Croix, although we no longer grow our sugarcane for that purpose. So a flower that's synonymous with the tropics and the Caribbean is the hibiscus, originally called the Rose of China, because in fact it's from the Orient and the Indian Ocean area, and you'll see it throughout the beautiful island of St. Croix. Now, the hibiscus is also part of bush tea making. It will help lower high blood pressure, and we serve hibiscus tea during our History and Nature tour and at our Mermaid restaurant. It's delicious and refreshing. We also have our Ixora. The Ixora comes in several different colors. The pink Ixora here, you'll see throughout the property. The Ixora is like a honeysuckle. If you pick one of the individual flowers and just take a little sip, like it was a straw, you get a burst of honey sweetness. So we have over 400 different plant species on the Buccaneer property alone, and we have just some of them here in our sugar mill that we'll talk about on today's tour. This is the flower of the Virgin Islands, Tacoma San. It's called locally the Ginger Thomas. It has a sweet, dusty honey fragrance. And the leaf of the Ginger Thomas is used in our medicinal tea practice, our bush tea, to lower high blood pressure. I don't know if it's been FDA approved, but that's one of its uses locally. We also have in here several different types of bougainvillea. The bougainvillea comes in every color of the rainbow. It's originally from the Mediterranean. It was brought here by the English, and it does so well that you would think it was a Caribbean flower, which of course today it is. We also have here our calabash. The calabash fruit dries and hardens and becomes so light that it's often used as a purse. Cut it in half, carve a design. Culturally, it was used as a drinking cup or bowl, and that's because it has a very hard exterior and is watertight. Its most famous use is a musical instrument. Bore a hole, put a few grains of rice and a handle, and you've got your maraca. We also have here the fruit of the baobab tree. If you've ever read the story of the Little Prince, the tree that he cares for on his planet is the baobab. It's thought to be perhaps the oldest tree on the planet and one of the longest lived. It lives for a few thousand years. It was established here, actually brought from Africa when slaves came and were brought here during our plantation era. There was a grove that was established, and now we have baobabs on the island and here at the resort. There's a large white waxy flower. Out of the center of that grows the fruit. On the inside of this seed pod is this chalky white fruit. It's thought to be a super antioxidant, and it tastes a bit like a sweet tart. We also have one of my favorite fruits, the mango. We have many different types of mango on property, and you can see this particular variety turns this beautiful cherry yellow when it's ready to eat. We also have the tamarind tree. The tamarind trees were brought here from India. They were brought here when the English owned the island. And on the inside of this is the fruit of the tamarind. It's often commonly called the Indian date. And this fruit is tart with a little sweetness. You'll see them for sale sometimes as tamarind balls wrapped in sugar. You have to have a bit of a liking for tart things. It also goes great if you don't and you want it a little sweeter in our Rikki Tikki Tavi, which is our tamarind margarita that we offer here at the Buccaneer. We saw earlier our cashew tree. So these are the nut casings of our cashew, which will open up with a nut on the inside. We do have a West Indian almond, and it starts off green, turns yellow. The outer yellow you can eat, and then a thin sliver of an almond is on the inside. And then finally here, this is the seed pod of our Switzinia mahogany. The mahogany tree is the tree of the Virgin Islands and is today protected as part of cultural heritage. Also part of cultural heritage are the over 200 sugar mills. The mill that we have here at the Buccaneer is a beautiful representation of the rubble masonry construction that was used when Denmark owned the island. Denmark purchased the island of St. Croix in 1733 and then sold it to the United States of America in 1917. That's when they sold all of the islands that became part of what is now today the United States Virgin Islands. You can see a composition of materials, coral heads, which fortunately we don't do anymore. In fact, the Buccaneer is a proud supporter of the Nature Conservancy's coral restoration and research program that's done here on island. Also, local materials, a type of slate and a type of limestone that you can see, this beige or yellow stone. And then laid in Danish brick. Bricks were brought over from Denmark as ballast. They were offloaded and used in streets, sidewalks, and the mills. And they would take back as ballast kegs of molasses, rum, mahogany wood, and of course, granular sugar. There was a whole period of 100 years when the expression was that sugar was king. And while we no longer grow sugarcane on the island, we still make rum. We have two types of delicious rums. Our Crucian rum, those of us from St. Croix are known as Crucians, and also Captain Morgan spice rum. You can do a distillery tour of both of those. And also, St. Croix has its very own breadfruit vodka, mutiny vodka of all sorts of delicious flavors, hibiscus passion fruit, lemongrass, etc. And you can try all of our rums and our mutiny vodka at the bars here at the Buccaneer and, of course, on the island of St. Croix.